Hi, welcome back to Gathering Grounds Gaming, and in this video I'm going to show you how to build some super simple 2-day scatter ruins. I'll see you after this. Now, I wanted to just show you some simple things that you can just take a couple of days to build. And you can use for either like wargaming, like I do, but also things like you can do like Lord of the Rings, Dungeons and Dragons. No, some super like just cool little ruins that you can literally throw down the table, create a scene, easy to store away, but actually still look really good on the table. I've done a couple of different things like this, but I just thought it'd be great to show an example of some of the things that I like to create for my tables. So as I say, we'll jump straight in and I'll catch you after. So I don't want this project to take too long. So I'm going to have 5 pieces. So I want 2 larger pieces. Okay. I want to be 1 medium piece. And I want there to be 2 smaller pieces. Okay. So your large one is going to be like your center pieces that go in the middle. You got your medium one, which will be something that you can sort of tag on the side, and you got your 2 small ones, but you can sort of scatter anywhere you want. Now, I want there to be some factors that sort of tie them all together. So I want there to be some pillars. Okay, a couple of pillars. Like one of the small ones will just be a broken pillar. I think that's a good factor in, and maybe a pillar on one of the larger pieces. Okay. And then the second is I want there to be all the same archways. So I want them to all have the same style archway, so you can see straight away that they're all from the same building or the same types of buildings. Okay. And finally, the stonework. I want the stonework to be very specific. So you can see from like that these are all the same type of buildings. So with the pillars, there's going to be like one on one piece and one on the smaller piece. And then I don't want there to be block work with the stonework. I want it to be all very sporadic style block work. So little small blocks, big blocks, thin blocks. So again, it's very specific to the sort of to the pieces that I'm going to make. So with the first one, I'm going to say I'm not an artist. So I want there to be like one of the larger pieces. I want there to be like an L-shaped building. So and I want on that L-shaped building, I want there to be like an archway. So that's the first archway, and it's going to be a big archway. But then I want it to be ruined on one side, so you can really see that this is a sort of broken with a small window. Now the window is important because of the type of war game I do. You can put like an archer up there, like a sniper up there, and it just gives it a little point of interest. So it just sort of like, it makes it different from the other pieces. So that I think is going to be really good. Some little wooden planks. And the archway is going to have a nice sort of stone at the top of the archway with smaller stones coming around the edge again. And we can replicate that across all of the pieces. And with the stonework, again, like I said, all sort of sporadic blocks. So it's not uniform. So it almost looks like drywalling on this one. So that'll be one of the pieces. Now, the second piece is going to be different. And again, I'm sorry I'm not an artist, but I want it to almost be like a piece that sort of steps down. So you're going to have sort of like your big sort of block up here, up at the top. And it sort of steps down by a couple of bits. So a piece can sort of like walk down the top of the piece. Again, archway. So again, tying them 2 pieces together so you can see that they're similar. They might not be the same size archway, but the same style of archway. And then the piece is going to sort of step down again as it comes along. But I want there to be another sort of archway that sort of sticks out of the piece, almost like a doorway. Again, this creates hopefully will create a nice sort of piece of interest when you look at the piece. And then again, it steps down like again. And then the piece will sort of like come round a bit. So you can see here, I've created a nice sort of step with a block that stands on its own, so it looks like it's almost broken off. It's a nice, interesting piece. I can imagine it having a nice little curve, as you can see a bit closer. sort of like will sort of curve around the base a little bit. And then the block work, you know, is the same as, like I said, it ties them all together. And then like one of the smaller pieces, like I said, almost just want to have it with like a pillar, like a square pillar that just literally stands on the piece, and it's just sort of broken. So it's sort of broken in half of it's laying down, and you can sort of scatter this around and it ties them together. I've got some really great shifting lands jigs, if you know shifting lands, where I can sort of like use it on my proxon to actually create some really cool pillars and then just break them up. And this pillar will also be on this big L-shaped piece, so again ties the pieces together really nicely. I don't think we need to do more than 2 pieces, but yeah, so as I say, you can see here this is the sort of ideas I'm going for. They might change slightly over time, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the foam, and I'm going to start cutting some bases. So these are the bases I've cut. So I've created 2 larger ones for the L shape and like the curved sort of step down base. You can see here I've beveled all the edges. This is just 3mm that I'm using, and then I'm going to start cutting the foam. So I've got an idea of like a rough idea of sort of the sizing at this point in time based on the bases. Now, so these are some of the jigs that I then use for it. So I've got my windows, and again, these are all from Shifting Lands, and this is the pillar jig that I'm going to use. So you slide the square of foam in, and you can sort of cut the pillar out. And now you don't have to use these jigs. You can just use sort of anything that's got a circular edge to create your doorways, as long as they're, you know, as long as they're sort of a similar size across the pieces. And with this, I literally just carve it in using a pencil. And then I'm just going to jump on my proxon, and I'll just cut the doors and the windows out. It's super easy. And what it means is it's just uniformed. So it creates a little bit of like symmetry across the pieces to sort of tie them all together. Super easy there. As you can see, and this is one of the smaller pieces. And I'm actually going to, with one of the smaller pieces, I'm just going to have a doorway and a window, and I'm just going to break look at, so it looks like the window's sort of broken. There you go. So that, again, that's one of the smaller pieces. Again, a nice bit of interest, very different to the other pieces. And I'm literally just going to carve with a scalpel the top of the archway, and then I'm just going to eyeball very carefully. I haven't got the steadiest hand, but I'm going to eyeball just the mirror of the archway. And now I'm just literally carving in the starting of the blockwork. The good thing is when you can actually then pull the brickwork that you've carved over to the other side, so it all looks very similar. But I'm literally just doing it sporadically. There's no real sort of like symmetry here. I'm not using a pattern. It's just creating the bricks as I see that they would be there, and that's quite nice. When you see, it does take a long time, but the result is really cool. And this is probably the longest part of the project, is carving in all of the brickwork into all of these pieces. But it does look good when it's done. And what I'll do is I'll come back in with a pencil, and I'll open out the cut lines in the block work, so you can sort of see that it sort of opens up really, really nicely. Yeah, I think you can sort of see me sort of doing it here. I'm just sort of cutting them in a little bit more just to widen them out, and they do look really good, and they hold the paint really well, and they do create some nice edges to dry brush it a little bit later. So it's well worth putting the time and the effort into doing this piece. And obviously it's quite important to sort of put your blockwork on the sides of the pieces, and that gives it that extra bit of realism, because it shows the blockwork. That sort of as it goes around the corners. That's where some people forget they don't do in the blockwork on the side, so it literally just looks like you have just etched it into a piece of foam. But if you get it on the edges of your buildings, it looks like the blockwork sort of wraps all the way around. So here we go, it's all done, and that's literally ready to stick straight down onto its base. You see the archway there, it's not too bad, the archway looks really good. And you can literally just stick that straight down on the base. And the way I stick it down is, you can use PVA, but I actually use some hot glue, just so much quicker, especially if you're trying to do this in across a couple of days. And then I'll come in and I will start to do the big. I've used a big archway for the L-shaped piece. This will be the biggest archway. I've decided that I think I'm gonna have the archway on this one the biggest, so it looks like it's meant to be a big doorway for a larger building. I just do the same method, just sort of dry fitting it there. So this will be the first part of the sort of L shape here. So what it's going to do is it's going to come onto the board, and then it's going to slowly start to curve around, so it starts to change direction. I think it creates a really nice little effect. So I've cut the archway into the second piece of this, again using my proxon, and then I'll carve the archway in, and you can see there that's already done. And I'm just literally dry fitting these because so I can get the right angle, so this can start to sort of bend around. And the same as before, I'll draw like a broken archway, and what it does is it makes this piece look like it used to be like a larger room with sort of a divide between them, and it's sort of been broken, so it's sort of like all sort of collapsed, and it just creates a nice little sort of spots. It creates some nice little hiding spaces on the piece. So when you're actually sort of doing wargaming, you've got some places for your miniatures to hide. So there you go there. I've just dry fitted it all, and that will then start to come round, and then I've got the little block that goes on the end. So that creates a nice little step, so your pieces can sort of run along and sort of like do sort of like jump tests and stuff like that, because I do Lord of the Rings. It's quite a nice little effect, and you get to use some of the mechanics from the game. And I'm literally just carving in the carving out the blocks as it's to sort of show it's crumbling from one piece to the next. So I think that's come out really nicely. I'm really liking that effect. And then, as I say, I will literally come back in and I'll draw in the archway, and I'll start to sort of put the block work in. I'm literally just this bit here, when I'm sort of carving out the blocks, there's no real sort of like a method to it. I'm just sort of doing whatever I feel, just to sort of, you know, create the effect of like a broken down sort of building. And I'm just sort of coming in here and carving in the archway like I did. It's actually worked really well with the scalpel. Just make sure your scalpel's really sort of like strong. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going back over the marks like I did before, to sort of get that brickwork in. And what I'll do is, when all this is done, I'll start to put the block work in. I'll start putting the pieces together after I've done all the block work. But this was probably the longest little bit. I must admit, I got about halfway through and forgot that I still hadn't done the other side of each piece. So it's one of those where once you've done it, you need to commit to it, because once you've started carving it, you can't go back and do it in a different way. So you've got to be willing to sort of go the distance. But this is the piece when it's finished. Forgot I hadn't glued it down. And I'm just going to test fit. Always have a couple of miniatures sort of knocking about, so you can sort of try out the sizes. So this one here, so you can walk down the piece, do a jump test, do another jump test, and then he's on the floor. And then, as I say, it just creates a nice effect. But again, it's some nice sniper positions from the top. Now the medium piece, this is going to be just a long piece. It's going to be a super simple one. I'm literally going to I think I decided to put just an archway in at the end, and just 3 medium-sized windows. So it creates a bit of like line of sight blocking terrain. If you're doing like sort of like Warhammer, but you still got some windows that you can shoot through. So here you go. And I'm just going to, again, you guessed it, carving that blockwork and that in. And then for the last one, this is going to be, I'm using a big archway. So this is the bigger L-shaped piece, and to create that big doorway. And that's going to be really nice because it's going to be the same archway, but it's just going to be so much bigger. And there's that window. And I'm just dry fitting some foam in there just to test the height. So now they're all carved. I'm literally going to break that pillar up. So there you go. I've done the pillar. Sorry, I missed the footage on that. But I used my proxon and a jig. But I'm just now going to break that pillar up, snap it in half, and so just do it so you can see where it would have fallen. And I'm literally just going to get my hot glue gun, and I'm going to glue the pieces down. So it's important with the pillar to glue it in all the contact places where it's going to touch the base. But remember, when you're going to put sort of like sand and that around it, so it should be fine. And again, I'm just going to do the same there, just trying to get the angles correct. You don't need to put lots, and if you've got time, you can use PVA. But as I said, if you don't have access to a glue gun, but I wanted to have quick stick so I can just jump straight on with the next part of the process. but I'd say it works really well. And you know, if you've got remember as well, like I've just seen here, is contact points. As many contact points with the hot glue as possible. And if you can get a low heat glue gun, that's even better. But these are all the pieces now, they're all glued down. So now I'm just going to go and make sure that all the joins, that all the brickwork sort of like joins up. So you can see I'm just adding a couple of extra cuts in. And again, like I said earlier, this is just to add to the realism. So it doesn't look like two bits of foams sort of one stuck on another. It actually looks like the blockwork travels round the piece. You don't have to do this, but I quite like to do it wherever I can, just so it sort of shows. So you can see here I'm doing it with this one again. So it looks like the blockwork carries around the piece. And now I'm on to sort of like the ground form. So basically I'm just using filler, basic filler mixed with black and brown paint. And what it will do is it will make sure that all the brown, so if you've got any flocks and that, if it comes off, then you've got brown like mud rather than MDF base. And I have jumped ahead a bit, so I'm just base coating everything in a really dark grey or a black. It's entirely up to you, but I wanted to go for dark grey rather than black because it makes it easier to transition. Again, for time, I don't have to worry too much about the dry brushing, sort of like the first layer. So I'm going to use a mid grey, a light grey, and some ivory. So I'm going to do an overbrush first with the mid grey because I've already done the dark grey as a base coat. So you can see here the dark grey sort of stays in all of the recesses, and you can see that carving really comes alive now when you start putting that paint on, and it looks really cool. I love this technique. Like I said, it takes a long time, but it's really good. Now I mix the mid grey with a bit of ivory. And this sort of dulls it down to sort of a bit lighter, creates a nice sort of a lighter effect. And I'm just going to dry brush, so very gently just drag the brush over, just catching all the tips. Don't do an overbrush. You don't want to cover this paint on the whole piece. You just want to dry brush it so it's drag most of your paint off on a piece of cardboard, and then just gently dry brush over the top. So you can still see the dark patches, but you can see the lighter grey sort of coming through there. And you can see it does start to come alive. So that's that paint. That piece is sort of pretty much done there. Oh, sneaky peek, a nice sort of tower in the background. That's another piece that I'm working on. So just make sure you go around. Don't miss anything. Right now, I'm going to go straight in with the light grey and the ivory with a bigger brush. So this is a bigger, lighter brush, and you just want to very gently touch all of the edges, and that should be creating a nice, really nice sort of like if you paint miniatures, it's like your edge highlights. That's what it creates, the dry brushing, but it still keeps all of the dark grey and all the recesses and all the shadowy places. And I will show you when it's all sort of done, but you know, there's no method to this. Just make sure you catch everything. Don't leave any dark grey. The worst thing is when you come to flock it and you realise there's a big patch of dark grey where you've missed it. So just make sure that you go around and check afterwards. And as I say, the good thing about this is if you're still not happy with how light the highlights are, then you can just go and add a bit more ivory or even add a bit of white just to make it even lighter. So now we're on to ground cover. So there's a couple of things I'm going to do here. So for the actual pathway, I'm going to use three things. So I'm going to use sort of forest path. So these are from Geek Gaming. So I'm going to create a pathway from the doorways and around sort of different places around the pieces, just to sort of show where the ground's been moved across. And then I'm going to do like a flock around to create the grass effect. So these are the different things I'm going to use. So I've got a forest path, which is this one here, which is very fine. It's got bits of flock in it, so bits of grass and everything in it. And that's going to be, I always put this down first. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a thicker sort of arid earth. And this is going to create like where the stones are just on the pathway. And the arid earth is this one here. and it's bigger stones, and it sort of like look where bits of stone have fallen off. And then I've got battle zone pathway, so it's really good little bit of flock in there. And this is from Jarvis, and it's got bits of grass, but it's got bigger, darker stones in it, so you can see. And this I put this on afterwards. And then, like I said, there's about 4 different types of flock in here: dark green, light green, all in one place. Just put it all on at the same time. You scatter that around the piece. And then on top of that, I will add a bit more stones back in to just onto the grass, just to blend it all together so it doesn't look like uniformed. And this is bushes, so this is again from Woodland Scenics, and there's big sort of chunks of flock in here, and I'm going to glue them to the piece after. So it's important when you do this that you've glued down, so put some PVA on first on your sort of spray liquid PVA on all of the piece before you put these bushes on. And then I'm going to use a bit of lichen. I'm not sure if I'm going to yet, but again, this is from Jarvis, and I've got light green, dark green and brown in here, so it's really nice. Again, a bit more interest, a bit of texture. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this, but as I say, it's really good for pieces like this to create a little bit of interest around the piece. So first thing you do is cover all the area that you want to cover in PVA. So this is just pure PVA. And then I'm going to literally start with the forest path, just to create the pathway through your piece, to mark out all your pathway. And I think on this piece there's going to be a couple of pathways that ran through the main archway, and then one through the broken archway. And again, this is really nice because you can sort of see this is where the miniatures would have run through. It's where it gets lots of use. And then I'm going to come with the arid earth, like the bigger stones, and I'm just going to drop them on here as well. I've got some even bigger stones here. Now, I actually come in later. I don't know if I showed you on camera, but I'm actually going to put some of this on the top of the building as well, where the miniatures run down. But at the moment, as I say, I'm just going to drop it onto the pathway, just to create some nice lines, and it creates some nice points of interest. Yeah, there you go. Look, I'm going to start putting it on top here. First of all, just to cover up some of them joins, but also, you know, stones would be on there because that's where people have been running through, so there'll be lots of sort of dirt and sort of like bits of broken stone, you know, just on the piece naturally. Again, it just creates a nice bit of interest and ties the piece all together. So yeah, that's where we are so far after putting the pathway in. And now we're going to come with the battle zone cover. So again, this just adds a little bit more texture into it. It's bits of grass, a bit of static grass in there, and it's got bigger stones in there, so it just doesn't look too uniformed. I'm just going to sprinkle not lots of it, but just a nice amount, again over the top of the piece as well. And that's what it looks like so far. So I think now we're going to come in with the green flock. So this is just going to cover all the other areas. Everything that's left is going to be covered in this green flock. Now take your time with this piece, because there's nothing like getting to the end and realize again like you've done the gaps. And you can see here I'm actually adding some PVA to the edges, so make sure you do the edges of your bases, because you don't want there to be, when you get to the end, there to be sort of like you can see the MDF underneath. So make sure you do all the edges. There you go, I've gone around and done those. It does take a bit of time, but it's well worth it. So again, now these are all the pieces have been done. So we're going to now add some of the bushes in, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that everything's locked in place with some PVA and some isopropanol. So you want to put some paper down, like otherwise this will go everywhere. But so what we do is, this is isopropanol, so basically this breaks up the surface tension of all the flock and all the stones we've put down. So when you then put the PVA on, I use a little just a little sort of syringe just to put the PVA on, but the PVA So this is it's complete. You have to soak it with the isopropanol, but this means that the PVA can sink right down to the bottom, and it just doesn't then glue the top parts of the stones and that. So here we go. Like, I'm going around the piece. Now you just want to like just drench this in watered down PVA and matte varnish. And now I've done all of that. I've locked it down, so it's not dry yet, but while it's drying, I'm going to go around and add little blobs of PVA all over the piece, and I am going to add in some the woodland scenic bushes. You can add it wherever you want, wherever you think bushes will grow. Just add it in. You can have big pieces, you can have small pieces. So here we go. I'm literally just grabbing a handful and I'm just going to push it all on. There's some smaller pieces, and again, this just adds a bit more texture and just a little bit more interest. Look, in the corners, so bushes will grow in the corners, but it just adds a bit more interest to the piece. A bit more realism. So there we go. I've gone around the whole piece, and I'll do this to all of the pieces, not just the larger ones. But just make sure they're pushed on, and then you go in again with the isopropanol, just spray a bit over them, and then we'll go in and put some. We'll pour a nice good amount of liquid down PVA and matte varnish, and these will literally dry like rock when they're dried, so they won't be going anywhere. Over time, the odd piece will fall off, but like it should go like rock. I've never had anything to sort of fall off after it's dried. So a good amount in there, soak it completely. So this is the larger piece. You can see I've actually added some planks into the window. I didn't get that on camera, unfortunately. So it was literally just a couple of little bits of balsa wood with a couple of little bits of like some coffee stirrers to create that platform so that your archer can stand there and sort of shoot arrows as things comes through. It adds a nice little bit of realism to the piece. So, you know, make sure you try and sort of create that. But these are all the pieces. So you've got your bushes there on the small sort of pillared piece. This is so that's the pillar that ties them both together, so you can see that they're all part of the same sort of set, which is really important when you're doing these smaller pieces. I really enjoy that. And there's your bigger piece, and there you go. There's the sort of step down that carries on all the way through the piece. Just think it's a nice little touch. So your miniature's going to be fighting on that piece, sort of climbing up, running up and down it. But you've got a little archway there, so you can hide. Just create some nice interest. I really like it. I'm really pleased how it's turned out. And this is the whole set. So I've also added some little grass turfs, some little sticky turfs. Like if you've seen in my other videos, you'll know. This is how we've got some miniatures on there. So the scale is really good. You can see them there just sort of fighting on that piece. With another miniature running through the archway. And this fills up it's not a big board's worth, but if you're doing D&D, you can sort of throw them down, or if you're doing like a little Lord of the Rings sort of scenario, you can on a sort of 4x4. So I hope you enjoyed that video. I really love making sort of like small scratch build scenery. It's where I started, and I still love going back to that. And it's really good, to sort of show people it's not really hard to make good scenery for like wargaming or Dungeons and Dragons. I think it's a really key part, especially when you're trying to get into the hobby. Sometimes you can get really daunting, and sometimes you look and you think actually the expensive scenery from like GW or other places is the only option, and actually I really hope that helps you see that isn't the case, that you can literally grab a sheet of foam from somewhere. You just need a knife, some basic paints, and actually you've got some flocks and stuff which will last you ages. So if you like this type of content, if you can sort of like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. If not, come across to Patreon, and if you can support me there, that would be amazing. But as I say, if you're on YouTube and that's what you want to do, if you can just like and subscribe, that would be amazing. It really helps a small sort of young channel like mine. But if there's anything you would like to specifically see on the channel, just drop a comment in below. But otherwise, hop across to Patreon, because there's some really good detail about some of the projects that are coming up, so you can just sort of keep your eye out for those. But until then, I look forward to seeing you.